Hello, everyone. My name is Sabah Naqushbandi, and I'm the Global Marketing Director at Mr. Porter. I joined the business back when it was a 2-year-old startup, and I've had the pleasure of seeing it establish itself now as one of the leading online men's style destinations globally. So a bit of background for some of you who may not be familiar with Mr. Porter. We were founded in 2011. We're the little brother to Net-a-Porter. And back then, these businesses were the pioneers, the movers and shakers. They were the ones that disrupted the luxury fashion industry, which at the time was still trying to navigate the online world and e-commerce. But clearly, a lot has changed since then. The market's caught up. We've got competition coming at us from all angles, not just from the retailers, but also from the partner brands that we stock, and also from the technology partners we invest in, expanding into e-commerce. And on top of that, customer behavior has changed rapidly. So what I wanted to do was share in the next 15, 20 minutes a few of the lessons that we've learned at Mr. Porter about how to stay relevant and how to stay ahead of the curve in a rapidly changing world. So 4 lessons. I like to keep things simple, and I also like to be a little bit dramatic. So lesson 1, evolve or die. So we all know the importance of brand consistency. We're all taught about staying true to our core. But in a world that's rapidly changing and where the rate and pace of change is so fast, understanding your historical strengths are key, but not evolving and not being brave enough to evolve has a risk. The risk of remaining the same is irrelevance. And so at Mr. Porter, we're really aware and we're really clear on our core value proposition. We're an authority and an expert on men's style. We curate the best product from around the world, and we like to tell stories that inspire and connect our audiences and community. But we've had to change, and that included taking some big bets. When we launched, we were this destination for the modern gentleman. We were known for also being a leader in luxury. Oh, this is not working. Never mind. We were known for being a leader in luxury. And over time, we've had to evolve and reflect the changing needs of our customers. We've evolved into a destination of discovery, still with an unparalleled product selection, still with an unparalleled storytelling, inspiring stories at the core of our service proposition, but most importantly, opening up to new perspectives, partnerships, and platforms. And what you're going to see on screen here is a little bit of that evolution. So this is a video that very much talks about our core luxury. And on the other side, what's supposed to play was going to be a bit of how we've evolved into contemporary and casual wear, which is now one of our fastest growing categories. But never mind if it doesn't work, we like to improvise. So what was important for us was throughout this period, also being really clear on our strengths. And I think what's important for businesses to do is continue to invest in these strengths. So capitalizing on our luxury heritage a few years ago, we decided to enter the fine watch market. This was a completely new business for Mr. Porter. We had to experiment, we had to learn fast. There were a lot of capability gaps that we had to address as well. But it's been interesting because this is a category that has exponentially grown, and it's fueling also the growth of our business. And actually, just last year, we took on all the learnings that we had with fine watches, and we grew our own confidence and decided not just to enter a new category, but also to create a new category. And last year, we introduced our audiences to a new movement, which was fine jewelry for men, trying to create a new market. Beyond evolving our product and content propositions, I think it's also quite interesting about how open we've been with experimenting with our business model. So, leveraging this wealth of expertise we had on men, and all the passion and all the knowledge and all the insights that we'd built over the years, we decided to launch our own label, Mr. P, back in 2019. So this is a contemporary brand that's representing, again, our commitment to enduring style, so playing on our historical strengths, but also championing that self-expression of our community. And when we launched, this was a bit of an experiment. It was almost a passion project from the team. Over the years, this has developed and grown, and we've actually established Mr. P in a very short period of time to become a top 5 brand. And if you think on Mr. Porter, we stock over 600 brands, the likes of Gucci, Tom Ford. For this to grow into that level of success from this side passion project is pretty impressive. Okay, so moving on to lesson number 2. Think people, not customers. So I think this was touched on in some of the earlier presentations. We live in a time where the role of marketing is changing. And I think, we're inundated with so much data now. We can measure, we can report on everything. And I at times fear that marketing has a risk of becoming a reporting function. And there's so much focus now on optimizing to kind of short-term sales performance at the expense of some of these longer-term brand and customer strategic health areas. Sometimes these relationships, this creativity is a little bit harder to measure. So I think trust, not data, is the new oil. And actually, trust has always been at the heart of what we as marketeers are meant to strive for. But in a world where information is readily accessible, consumers are scrutinizing and becoming increasingly skeptical and empowered. Data regulation is also changing. This idea of building trust is just becoming increasingly important. So this is where having strong brand values and a strong and differentiated character comes into play. So at Mr. Porter, we see ourselves as much more than just an e-commerce platform. We don't see ourselves as an e-commerce platform, actually. We see ourselves as that helpful friend, a very stylish, helpful friend, that's there to make you look and feel your best, and generally to make your life easier. So it's one of the reasons why, back in 2019, we launched an initiative called Health in Mind. So this was pre-COVID, and back then, male mental health and well-being were not being widely discussed. But we saw these issues coming up in our customer surveys. And actually, it was quite shocking. I think it was something like 60% of our customers had expressed and stated that they had experienced a mental health concern. And only 20% had said that their mental health was excellent. So this really also, for us, kind of highlighted a broader challenge. And we felt, as this leading aspirational lifestyle platform for men, we not only had an opportunity, but also a responsibility to make a difference. So Health in Mind, it's a content and charitable initiative that aims to raise awareness around mental health, basically encourage men to talk about how they feel, normalize discussion around mental well-being, while also raising funds for causes committed to supporting mental and physical well-being for men. We believe that great brands are built on the people they serve, and that's why the team committed to integrating Health in Mind into all aspects of the brand experience, from developing a year-round editorial and social strategy to launching over 600 products where profits go direct to our fund, powered by Movember, All of these actions are playing a huge part in raising awareness and reaching millions of people, but also fundraising hundreds of thousands of pounds to date to support the cause. Lesson 3. So post-COVID, the word purpose has been used a lot. I think it's been quite overused, actually. But the reality is, at Mr. Porter, we've always had a very purpose-driven mission. The stakes, however, are a lot higher, and there's higher expectations of leaders and businesses when it comes to this area. So at Mr. Porter, we talk about how our aspiration is no longer just to inform and educate our audiences, including the wider industry, to be more responsible when it comes to style. We actually want to inspire and incentivize this behavior. And we actually know from our research that customers, they need a bit of a jolt. It's not going to happen without a bit of a prod. And so instead of waiting for their behavior to change over time, instead of waiting for the industry to reactively catch up, we want to be part of the solution, pushing the agenda forward. And so we launched our pledge, and there's a number of different examples of some of the things that we're doing, and I'll touch on a few. The first was we launched the Mr. Porter Craftsmanship Code. And this is about us committing to give more real estate, more visibility, and more promotion to brands that make a positive contribution to their communities, that adhere to a set of principles championing craft, responsible manufacturing, and sustainable materials, basically with social and environmental considerations at the forefront of their design and business operations. So our aim is actually to make sure that these brands get more space, get more success, because actually we want to shape the market here and create the demand. We also launched an initiative called Mr. Porter Futures. And this was actually, it came from the team, like after seeing this problem that we have in the industry about, addressing inclusivity. It's a hugely ambitious designer and businessmanship program because it addresses the full value chain. So we give someone in the world, they could be anywhere in the world, they could have zero experience, they don't need to have any funds, the opportunity to create their own menswear brand, produce it sustainably from scratch, and launch it globally on Mr. Porter, and then keep their rights and continue their business. So you've got some of the people that were selected in the first year of the program. Their collections are launching later this year, and they're amazing. Hopefully we will incubate some amazing talent. We then also launched an initiative called Mr. Porter Resell. Clicker work. There we go. So not only is this just a fuss-free resale service where we do all the heavy lifting, we collect your garments, we do the listing, you get to resell across multiple categories, you don't even need to have bought it from Mr. Porter, but we also incentivize you to actually be responsible and give life to your clothes. And we do this by giving you extra store credit to spend on Mr. Porter as well. So the list goes on, and I think the main point I do want to highlight here is we are at the start of a very long journey. And I think what's really important is for brands to make sure that they're on a journey and they're starting, and to have the humility also to recognize that this is going to be a long journey, to leave things in a better place than when we found them. Lesson 4, this is maybe stating the obvious, but I think it's a really important one. Your team is your number one asset. And, I think this is so important now. Brand culture needs to be reflected in your employee value proposition. We all know the challenge right now with talent, retaining talent, the great resignation, whatever you want to call it. People are fundamentally at the heart of our business. In fact, at Mr. Porter, we talk about our talent being the most valuable asset, and it's important to treat them that way. So ours is a culture where we encourage everyone to be a custodian of the brand. everyone to champion the customer experience. It's not just the marketing function, it's not just the creatives. Positive word of mouth, and this links back to the earlier point I was making about trust. It really begins from your employees. So we also decided to be a bit brave and a bit bold, and this is quite a big deal for a luxury brand, and open up our organization to the public. So earlier this year, we partnered with an app called Anyone. It's an audio app, an award-winning connection-making audio app, which essentially allows access to our teams so that anyone from around the world can pick up the phone and speak to one of our team members. And we've got representation at all levels, across all functions, and also in all of our different offices. So the idea here was not just to give back and open up access to an industry that's historically been a little bit not so inclusive, but it was as much to engage our employees and show how important our team were to the brand and our culture. It's not just the senior spokespeople that represent Mr. Porter, it's all of our team at every level. So, quick summary, because I know you're all keen for lunch. 4 key takeouts. Number 1, evolve or die. It's really important to overcome that fear of failure and push the barriers. It's not an option in a world that's rapidly changing, so creating that safe learning culture where risk is actively encouraged is important, because if you don't try, you'll never succeed. Lesson 2, think people, not customers. Building trust here is key, and avoiding that tendency to just focus on the short term, remembering that values don't just mean numbers. Lesson 3, being the change, don't wait, because whether you like it or not, it's going to happen, and you don't want to be too little and too late when it does. And lesson 4, your team is your number 1 asset. Care for them as much as you do your customers. You owe it to them. So I'm going to actually end with a little video. It's our latest brand campaign. And it's the first time, actually, in the history of Mr. Porter where we decided we wouldn't just focus on product, and we'd lead instead with the power of the brand and our values. So enjoy. And then after this, I don't know whether there's time for questions, but I'm open to them.
Man said, life is not about finding yourself. It's about becoming yourself. And so we stare at a canvas with a palette of choices which become who we are.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Amazing talk. I think trust is the new oil is my favorite phrase. So I want to put a question to you from Lisa. She asks, you're already doing great things here in this space, so kudos, but how do you ensure you're continuously engaging with the next generation of your audiences, such as Gen Z, authentically?
So this, I mean, it links to the first point I mentioned about not being afraid to experiment. And it's quite interesting because there's a lot of debate and discussion internally at Mr. Porter around how do we evolve without alienating our core audience, but also bring in this new customer. And actually having that debate and discussion, experimenting, creating that culture which is safe for learning, it's part of the solution. So what we typically do is we say, let's experiment, let's see what happens, let's actually launch something. So as an example, where we're experimenting, we're going to be launching on TikTok as an example. And the idea here is we learn as we go along. And I think this idea of just staying static and just being playing it safe, it's just not an option, because if you want to lead, you're not following others. So you're going to make mistakes, you're going to fail, but actually if you fail fast and you learn quickly, it's all good.
Last question from me. We've been purpose sort of dominates conference stages and event stages. It has dominated Madfest. And you talked earlier about maybe not every brand, is doing it correctly. So it was sort of refreshing to see how purpose permeates everything you do at Mr. Porter. But do you think every brand really has to have a purpose to succeed?
It goes back to your brand value proposition, right? You have to be clear on your points of difference and also your points of parity. I think there is an expectation, if you're in a leading position now, you have a responsibility. And I think, some brands, they jump on the bandwagon and it feels inauthentic because it doesn't link to their core brand value proposition. For me, there's a piece about if you understand where you can make a difference, how it also links authentically to your brand value proposition, it makes sense. For us at Mr. Porter, we've always been about making the lives of men easier. It's all about, trying to help them look and feel good. So the mental health connection, the physical well-being, all of that was a natural evolution. If we'd gone into a totally different space where there was not that connection, it would have felt inauthentic. So I think you have to be really clear on actually where your value as a business, where your differentiation as a business lies, and then linking the purpose into that versus starting with a purpose and trying to, back justify it.
Well, we're out of time. Thank you so much. That was totally inspirational. Thank you so much. Thank you.